Being an 8-year-old around Halloween time should be great. However, what if your life at home was already scary enough that the horrors of the holiday seem like a vacation? Let's find out what dirty deeds our parents are hiding, discover if we can trust the voice in the walls, and see how to survive in the movie Cobweb. We start 1 week before Halloween, where a lonely kid with strict parents is sleeping in bed. This is Peter, who is soon awoken by sounds of movement coming from behind the walls. He taps to investigate, and sure enough, the sound taps the wall back. Understandably scared from this, he goes to tell his parents, but his mom can't seem to recreate the noise once she comes to check on him. Claiming the usual excuses for this situation, noisy old house and the kid's overactive imagination, she sends him back to bed. The next day at school, Peter skips recess to avoid getting picked on by the class bully and instead spends some time with the new substitute teacher named Mrs. Devon. That's pretty sweet, but she should probably figure out that bully problem if you ask me. Anyway, that night at dinner, Peter asks his parents if he can participate in trick-or-treating this year, but they shoot him down by telling a story of how a girl disappeared several years back during Halloween, basically saying no. Anyway, later, while trying to sleep, a noise is heard behind Peter's wall again, followed by a little girl's voice that calls to him by name. He screams for his parents as his dad comes to investigate. He believes it's just rats making the sounds and has Peter help him lay out poison the next day, despite the kid feeling bad for any rodents they would happen to murder. The following day at school, Peter draws a slightly concerning picture for his art project. Okay, this gets the attention of Mrs. Devon, who should, in theory, report this to the higher-ups and directly to Child Protective Services by law, but instead just goes straight to Peter's house herself to share her concerns with the mother. Peter's mom quickly retreats inside while claiming everything is fine. Really. Once inside, however, she confronts Peter about this, who says he isn't the one asking for help in the picture, she is. The mom angrily blows this off as nothing more than his overactive imagination again, which really isn't the way to handle these things, is it? You cannot simply evade all of your child's attempts to communicate with you and then in 30 years complain why he ain't coming for Christmas, right? If anything, her reaction makes him feel like whatever he goes through is petty and not worth sharing, because nobody wants to listen to it anyway. Which probably is also the reason why they have no idea about the bully problem at school and why Peter connects with his teacher instead. Anyway, a few days later, during another night, the voice in the walls returns once again, despite Peter trying to believe he is just imagining things. Now the voice claims she wants to be his friend, saying that she could use one, and thinks he could use one too. Peter agrees, and they talk for a while until he eventually shares his bully problem with her. Her advice for him is to be strong, make the other kid afraid of him instead, and push back. Now Peter does this quite literally, as he shoves the bully down a flight of stairs, breaking the kid's legs, which is a great way to prevent being bullied for the next 6 months, as legs take a while until they are healed. And if the bully keeps being annoying, you can always kick one of those crutches away while he is in midair, preferably on the side of the fractured leg to extend the healing process and cut you some more time. You're welcome. Of course, Peter is immediately expelled for this, with his parents being appalled by their child's behavior. And after telling Peter one final time that he did not hear any voices in the walls, his dad decides to ground him. Which in this household doesn't mean stuck indoors or even confined to your room, but instead locked in the basement with the door barricaded by the refrigerator. Alright. They drag Peter down the stairs, claiming they're doing this for his own good and because they love him. Sure, as they leave him down there alone in the dark. Whew, how to create a school shooter 101, I guess. Anyway, let's take this time to reflect and see if anything could have been done differently so far. Let's be honest, my friends, hearing sounds in a house is not uncommon. Okay, I hear them every night and I get paranoid every night too. However, when those sounds speak our name, we should be alerted, right? Take some antipsychotic drugs and observe if the sounds persist. If yes, congratulations, you're probably not crazy, but you may be haunted. Now we should interrogate the voice as much as possible, right? Finding out where it comes from, why it's here, and what it wants. From there, we can decide if we should trust it or our parents. Now while in the basement, Peter tries to talk to the girl in the wall again, but she either can't hear or is choosing not to respond. Eventually, after looking around, he finds a grate that leads to a deep pit with a teddy bear at the bottom. Strange, but let's just be thankful the parents aren't choosing to keep him down there. Now, the next day, Mrs. Devon visits Peter's house again, claiming she wanted to give the child his final math test since he won't be able to pick it up. Surprisingly though, the dad invites the teacher inside, the same house in which the child is banished in a cold, dark basement room with the door blocked by a fridge. Probably not a good idea to invite anybody in right now. They discuss Peter's behavior and what will happen for him education-wise in the future. Now, when Mrs. Devon asks if she can say goodbye to him, they claim that he is grounded and can't see anyone at this time, just before the mother has a complete meltdown. Alright. Meanwhile, while locked up and barricaded alone in the dark basement, Peter hears his teacher in the kitchen. He starts to slam the door and shouts for help, but it's laundry day, so his pleading can't be heard. He is eventually let out of the basement later that evening, with a celebration of cupcakes no less, but they do make him admit to stop telling silly lies. Nothing like loved ones hurting you, lowering your guard with acts of kindness, and then suddenly making you confess to being in the wrong the entire time. Classic. During the night, Peter goes to the wall to talk to the girl. She finally explains that she is his sister, Sarah. Apparently, she has been in the crawl space behind the locked door in the parents' room. And seeing how they did the same to Peter with the basement trap, it sounds like something that could be true. Apparently, it took her years to scratch her way through the walls just to get to Peter's bedroom and ask him for help. Now, Peter has his doubts though that his parents are really so evil, but Sarah says she has proof. The trick-or-treater that disappeared years ago was actually at their house for candy. Sarah asked her for help when she knocked on the door, and the parents silenced her permanently to keep their child abuse a secret, burying her body in the garden. Something that Peter finds at least partially possible after he digs up a child's skull in their pumpkin patch the next day. He immediately vows to save Sarah from the wall so that they can run away together, and to do so he's going to call for help. As we know, Mrs. Devon wrote her phone number onto the test she brought over to the house, just in case he needed it. Pretty convenient. He calls for help, but didn't bother to check if any of his parents would be able to overhear him. Stupid mistake. His mother intercepts the call and explains that Peter just missed his favorite teacher, but now is too shy to come to the phone, and hangs up on her. Afterwards, she angrily drags him to his bedroom, but notices a rip in the wallpaper, revealing a small hole that Peter was using to communicate with Sarah. The mother begins to panic as she realizes the path her daughter has taken behind the walls to get there. The only thing that she adds is it doesn't matter anymore before locking herself into her bedroom. Now, Peter is unsure of what to do, and even more unsure of what his parents might do. Now, Sarah warns that they will likely kill both of them to hide their actions again. Immediately after hearing this though, his dad walks in, claiming there is a problem with the garden and he needs Peter's help to fix it tomorrow. The movie does a pretty good job in painting an ambiguous picture here, framing multiple plausible outcomes. Are these parents truly evil? Well, from Peter's own perspective, they're certainly no good parents, but are they really killers? I mean, does the girl in the wall really exist? In that case, she must be given food to survive, right? And if yes, that would be pretty difficult to hide from Peter for so many years. Of course, these simple questions are way above a simple 8-year-old, especially with parents that abuse him. So whether they are shielding off an evil spirit or not, in either case, mistreating their child is probably a bad strategy. Now, it eventually turns out that there really was a problem with the garden. Some black rot killing off various vegetables, and the dad wants Peter to help him bury it. Now it's finally Halloween night and the family enjoys a soup dinner together, with the mother getting furious every time trick-or-treaters come up to the door as she shouts them away. I mean, you could just stop putting up Halloween decorations if you don't want people to come and knock, right? Also, a simple sign saying no candy would save you the trouble of having to actually answer the door each time. Just saying. Or just put a bowl with candy out and have people help themselves. Even if you're evil, or particularly if you are, this would manipulate your neighborhood into believing you're a good person, which you can then exploit to satisfy your satanic needs. I'm just saying, guys. Anyway, after finishing most of their bowls, the father comments that it tastes slightly different today. It's at this point he also notices Peter hasn't touched his food at all. Putting two and two together, he grabs his son and demands to know what he's done, as Peter's only comments that this is for hurting his sister. The father tells the mother to call 911, but Peter was smart and thought ahead, cutting the phone line preemptively. As his dad vomits a bunch of blood and dies, Peter's mother grabs a kitchen knife and chases her son up the stairs. Before the final blow is struck, however, the poison takes effect, allowing Peter to kick her down the steps, having leveled that skill up already with the help of the bully last week. As he goes to grab her keys for the crawl space, his mother uses her dying breath to simply say, "Don't let her out." That's a pretty big red flag for someone to say if it's their last words, right? Now, should we listen to that advice or not? It's hard to tell. What we do know, however, is that we're orphans at this point, meaning there is not much else to lose. Or is there? Let's have a look. The moment we are let out of the basement, we could have ran away for help, head to the police station, tell them of our abuse, and hopefully have Child Protective Services take us somewhere safe. To help ensure this, we could even etch something into the basement wall to prove we were there. And that is, if we even need to, once investigators find a pit with a child's teddy bear inside. Not to mention the skull of some unknown dead person. Now, of course, Peter is only 8 years old, so I can understand him being too afraid or even being unaware of this option. That is what makes child abuse so problematic. Someone who shouldn't be unaware of these options, however, is Mrs. Steven, who instead of doing something that looks super sus, such as giving her personal cell phone number to an underage child, should have instead contacted the authorities for an investigation already. I mean, that drawing of Peter is one glowing red flag that you can't miss. Even if Peter intended to draw the voice he's been hearing, it isn't clear to someone looking at the drawing. What is clear, however, is the fact that whatever this child goes through is disturbing. If you truly wanted to sneak any phone number to Peter for him to call for help, it should have been social services, where he could tell them the situation directly. And any interception from the mother would likely just increase suspicion of an issue that needs looking into. As for Sarah, so far we have no reason whatsoever to trust her. Sure, the things she says seem to be true, but facts like a skull in the garden could easily be twisted. For example, maybe Sarah killed the trick-or-treater and the parents decided to punish her for it by locking her into the crawl space, to maybe even protect her from investigators. That is just as likely to be an option as any other story, which is why we need more information from both Sarah and the parents to know exactly who to trust. I mean, we don't even know for sure if she's really our sister. Of course, with how Peter's parents act, especially in response to things in the wall, we can't really ask them directly, and this very much makes him seem guilty. So we can't blame Peter at all for choosing a sibling who could very likely be a victim of abuse just like himself. With the parents out of the picture though, Peter moves to their grandfather's clock, unlocks the door and sets his sister free. An action he immediately regrets though, as Sarah's voice turns raspy and she lets out a creepy laugh. He locks himself in his room as Sarah mocks him for killing their parents. Okay. Now the trick-or-treaters arrive and she excitedly claims it's just like the girl in the garden as she rushes downstairs. However, the kids that are coming are not normal kids looking for candy. Instead, it's a school bully with his cousin and friends looking for revenge. Guess they had planned to attack, if not murder, Peter and his family tonight. But when they get to the house, the door opens for them seemingly by itself. And ignoring this obvious red flag, they enter, split up, destroy and trash different parts of the home, all while shouting for Peter. Eventually, Pigmask hears a sound by the piano, and when he goes to investigate, gets dragged underneath it and instantly splatters into a pool of blood. His screams get the attention of the others. Bunny Mask goes to check it out, only to be dragged off while shouting for help. The school bully is now sitting there frightened, as Sarah crawls all over the walls and ceiling around him, eventually peering right over his head for... That's right, the jump scare. For the final intruder, Sarah helps them make their headless horseman costume more authentic. How nice of her. She laments Peter over her past and how she was considered a monster at birth and locked away. Meanwhile, Peter got a room and a warm bed, so out of spite, she grabs her little brother and locks him into the crawl space. All is not lost yet though, as Mrs. Steven arrives at the house just at that moment, concerned over the phone call she received yesterday. Not sure why this took her an entire day to look into, but let's be thankful for that. Now, finding the door slightly open, the teacher enters, calling out for Peter. She's soon attacked by Sarah, and after seeing how fast that woman can dismantle several bodies, we know she's clearly just toying with her prey this time. Mrs. Steven grabs a fire poker for defense, and even makes it to the front door for escape, but stops when she hears Peter in the walls. He actually tells her to run, but she courageously refuses and heads upstairs to save the kid. Once in the bedroom, Mrs. Steven barricades the door and begins using the fire poker to break down the wall. While doing this though, Sarah scuffles into the crawl space, attempting to flank them from the other side. Miraculously, they get out before Sarah arrives, head downstairs, and are almost out the door, but unfortunately Peter gets dragged back inside. He soon awakens in a basement pit as his sister scurries down the side to visit him. Not entirely sure what she's planning, but she's interrupted by Mrs. Devon, who is once again returning for another rescue attempt. She's not very good at this though, as her leg is quickly slashed open by Sarah. Before the sister can finish the teacher off though, her long overgrown Rapunzel-like hair happens to fall into the pit behind her, and Peter grabs it to climb his way out, pulling Sarah away from her targets in the process. Once out, Peter continues pulling Sarah's hair in the most life-threatening game of tug war outside of Squid Game. Mrs. Devon attacks the girl with her fire poker to assist, and together they're able to force Sarah into the pit as Peter quickly covers and locks the grate. As they turn to leave, Sarah tries one last attempt at convincing her brother to help her. He points out that it's a bit late for that now, so she instead fills him with paranoia, saying she will eventually get out and hunt him until the rest of his days. Okay, now the movie technically ends here, which is a super strange point to end the movie, because, well, there's many corpses lying upstairs. How are you gonna explain that? Who's getting custody of Peter? Who knows? Before we end this video though, let's go over the last few bits of this film and see what we could have done instead. After letting Sarah out, obviously Peter had plenty of time to close and relock the door if he truly wanted to. But if he couldn't, why hide in the bedroom instead of just leaving the house? You should be able to close the front door just as easily as a bedroom door, and this would also have him out of harm's way when the bully arrived. Now, let's skip forward to when they actually trapped Sarah already. They should absolutely not just leave her there alive. They should flood the pit with cement to make sure, alive or dead, Sarah will stay down there forever, right? Especially after the paranoia she triggered. Other options include going to get firearms and, well, you know, finish the job. Or just use the hose to flood the pit and see if she can swim, if you know what I mean. We could even do any combination of these solutions one after the other to make sure she ain't coming back. Basically, we have no clue what exactly Sarah is capable of, and I'd rather not take any chances, especially after her cryptic threat of hunting us down until we die. Now, the last thing to mention isn't something we could have done ourselves, but something the parents should have done. Just tell Peter the truth. Why would they hide Sarah from him in the first place? Who knows? But at the very least, when Peter starts to hear things and even communicates with the girl, why in the world would they deny it like she doesn't exist? Clearly, she did. Had they just been upfront and told Peter that they have a killer in the walls, he wouldn't be inclined to believe her, let alone help her escape. And by doubting and even punishing Peter over this, it made him trust them less and even seek personal justice to prevent them from doing any further harm, leading to their eventual wipeout. So, in the end, Peter and Mrs. Devon survived. Hopefully, she can get custody over him and the two can have a nice little life together. Assuming Sarah was taken care of, that is. Anyway, that was this movie, my friends. Thanks for watching. Catch you again next week as always with another episode. Peace out.